Secret spells suspense. Rain hammered the office window in relentless waves, turning the streetlights outside into smears of trembling gold. Evan Drake leaned back in his threadbare swivel chair and watched water crawl in crooked lines down the glass. A citywide blackout of good luck, he decided. Nothing wholesome ever dragged itself through weather like this. His phone had stayed silent since noon. Even the cockroaches avoided his place when the clouds burst overhead. Then the door burst too. A gust of wet air swept in first, scattering case files that barely qualified as confidential, and behind it hurtled a woman who seemed built of panic and lavender-scented steam. She slammed the door shut with her hip, hung her umbrella on the coat rack, and promptly dripped onto the floorboards. "Evan Drake?" Her voice wavered between urgency and embarrassment, while her apron, pale green and embroidered with tiny moons, clung to her like seaweed. "That's what my mail says." He stood, flicked a loose sheet of paper off his shoe, and gestured toward the lone client chair. "Weather's free. Investigations aren't." "I'm aware." She hurried forward, shoes squelching. A rain-warped business card crinkled in her fingers. She deposited it on his desk like a precious gemstone. "I need you to solve a problem, immediately." He peered at the ink bleeding across the card. Tessa Moon, proprietor, Moonlight Remedies. The name rang a faint bell. Herbal shop downtown, all warm light and fern-covered windows. But he had never stepped inside. He preferred coffee to lavender balm. "Sit." He motioned again, softer this time. She obeyed but perched on the edge, twisting water from the hem of her apron. "Tell me what needs solving." "I'm being blackmailed." She sucked in a breath that smelled of mint and something stranger, metallic and sweet, like lightning. "Someone discovered my secret." Evan's brow lifted a millimeter. He'd heard 100 flavors of secret, affairs, gambling debts, back-channel bribes. And what would that be? "I'm a witch," she whispered. Silence. Only rain answered. He tapped a pen against his chin. "You heard the part where I'm a private investigator, not a therapist, right?" "Believe me, I didn't come for therapy. I came for discretion, proof, and a plan." She pulled an envelope from her satchel. Black ink threatened to leak through the paper. He accepted it, slid out a single sheet, and scanned the jagged handwriting. "Reveal yourself. 10 grand or the council gets everything. No signature, no flourish, straight to the jugular." "And you're telling me this is because of magic?" "Yes, my shop's a front for herbal remedies, but real magic runs beneath every tincture bottle. The council despises what they don't control. If this leaks, they'll shut me down, confiscate my grimoire, maybe worse." Evan exhaled and felt the air thicken with her fear. "Do you have enemies?" "Not intentionally. Customers adore me. Neighbors get free teas." She hesitated. "But I have suspicions." "You want me to figure out who and why?" "Precisely." She reached into her satchel again, pulled out a thick stack of bills bound with a silver ribbon, and set it on the desk. "Retainer." He stared. It was generous enough to replace every broken ceiling tile, and maybe the ceiling. "All right, Miss Moon, you have my attention." "Tessa, please." "Evan." He extended a hand. She shook it. Her fingers surprisingly warm despite the storm. A spark zinged up his arm, rapid and tingling. He'd chalk it up to static, though the air already hummed with something he couldn't identify. He cleared his throat, turning toward the wilting fern in the corner. Its leaves drooped like sad flags. Tessa's gaze followed. She blinked, murmured something under her breath, 3 syllables of river-smooth language, and the fern straightened, bursting into lush green with a single shy white blossom. Evan's jaw clicked shut a moment late. "Consider it proof," she said softly. He pointed at the plant. "You do that often?" "Only when necessary, or nervous." Her smile quivered. He faced her fully, heartbeat tapping a faster rhythm. All right, here's how this works. You tell me every suspicion, every conversation that felt off, every odd look. We build a suspect list. We tail, we verify. We? Her eyes brightened. You'll need to identify things I miss, spells, vibes, whatever. But you follow my rules in the field. I can do that. She straightened, water droplets sparkling on her curls like tiny glass stars. First, he said, get dry. There's a towel in the washroom. Once the rain eases, we'll tour your shop for our baseline. It rarely eases during monsoon week, she warned. Then we'll bring umbrellas. But as he said it, thunder rumbled overhead like distant applause. Tessa disappeared to the washroom. Evan found himself staring at the resurrected fern. Outsider or not, the city council's fear of witches wasn't unfounded if flowers obeyed whispered orders, but fear bred ugly things. If someone wanted to force power out of her hands, they'd chosen a dangerous route. He'd seen extortion twist decent people into monsters. The washroom door creaked. Tessa emerged, damp towel draped around her shoulders. Ready? Evan opened the door to the hallway and the storm's roar hit them anew. Let's go charm a taxi. I could, she offered, half teasing. Let's try the old-fashioned way first. They reached the street. Rain ricocheted off parked cars. Tessa held her umbrella like a flimsy shield while Evan flagged a rusty cab. Inside, the driver squinted at their soaked clothes. Moonlight remedies, Evan directed. The driver gunned the engine and Tessa tucked her hands between her knees. Thank you for not laughing. I charge by the hour, not by the laugh. A small giggle escaped her anyway. He found himself grinning, surprised at the unfamiliar flex in his cheeks. The cab jerked to a halt 10 minutes later. Tessa paid, adding a lavender-scented sachet for the driver's dashboard. Evan followed her under the awning of Moonlight Remedies. Warm light glowed through the fogged glass. Copper wind chimes clanged softly upon entry. Inside was a forest of bottles, candles, herbs hanging like upside-down bouquets. Scents layered, jasmine, clove, cedar. Customers bustled, a teenager choosing incense, an elderly man trading coins for arthritis balm. They smiled at Tessa, oblivious to anything but her kindness. Business seems healthy, Evan murmured. It is. That's why I can't lose it. She gestured him toward the narrow counter. I keep ledgers back here. They slipped behind a curtain. Shelves lined the workspace, each jar labeled in looping script. Tessa dug out notebooks filled with charts, addresses, potion codes. Potential suspects, she said, tapping a page. Mrs. Calder, her cat's longevity tincture doubled in price last month. She threatened a complaint. Marcus Vale, pharmacist, hates alternative medicine. My neighbor Gerald thinks I'm sabotaging his tomato plants. And Daphne Lowell, best friend, art dealer. She helped install my window display. You suspect your best friend? Tessa's mouth twisted. Envy does strange things. He started a fresh notebook, names, motives, alibis. I'll tail Gerald tonight. Vale tomorrow morning. What about Daphne? She's hosting a gallery opening Friday, huge crowd. Perfect cover for mischief. He wrote Friday in bold. You'll stay visible at your shop until I need you. She rolled her eyes. Try keeping me away. I figured. He closed the ledger. Let's run a quick perimeter check. Cameras? Locks? She guided him through back doors, storage closets. Evan noted a rear exit facing an alley. Padlock sturdy but dusty. Any break-in signs recently? No. They returned to the front. The bell tinkled as the teenager exited, incense in hand. Tessa served 2 more customers, weaving through them with practiced grace. He watched from a corner, seeing how their eyes softened at her presence. When closing time arrived, she flipped the sign and sighed. Ready for the stakeout? I was born in a decrepit sedan, he joked. She laughed, wiping counters. They headed to his car, an ancient blue clunker that coughed awake like a chain smoker. Rain eased to a drizzle. Evan parked half a block from Gerald's townhouse, lights off, Engine ticking. Tessa rubbed the windshield clear. Gerald waters tomatoes at midnight, then complains they drown at dawn. Let's see if he dabbles in blackmail between watering. Hours crawled. Gerald appeared twice, once to scold his cat, once to peer suspiciously at a lamppost that flickered. Tessa grew restless. She rummaged her purse, produced a tiny glass vial. Enhancement elixir, she explained. Sharpens night vision. You're not dosing my coffee. Fine, I'll drink it. She tipped it back. A faint violet glow circled her pupils. Evan blinked. She gasped. Wow, your pores are amazing in moonlight. He snorted, rubbing a hand over stubble. Focus, Moon. Right. She peered through binoculars. Silence enveloped them again. Midnight passed. 1 o'clock. Gerald never reappeared. Tessa yawned. False lead? Maybe, or he mailed the letter during daylight. She leaned back, hair brushing his shoulder. Tell me something not in your files. Why did you leave the police? He hesitated. Rain tapped the roof like an impatient interviewer. Bureaucracy. Too many rules, not enough justice. She nodded slowly. Magic laws are similar. My kind stays hidden or the council rewrites us. They shared a look, something in her expression, half apology, half gratitude, made his chest tighten. What about you? He asked. Why risk exposure at all? Her voice softened. A healer heals. Hiding would suffocate me. He swallowed the thrum in his throat. Good answer. At 2, they conceded defeat. Evan drove her home. She lived in a loft above the shop. Before exiting, she placed a hand on his dashboard. For safe travel. A faint shimmer crossed the cracked plastic. The clunker's engine purred, smoother. Thank you, he murmured, strangely humbled. See you tomorrow. She hesitated, eyes flicking to his lips, then darted away. She vanished up the iron stairs, apron fluttering. Evan rested his head on the steering wheel, inhaled lavender lingering in the air, and wondered when the job had become personal. The next morning he tailed Marcus Vale. The pharmacist wore crisp lab coats and scowls. Evan followed him from the drugstore to a gym and then to lunch with an investor. Nothing shady. He didn't mail letters or whisper on phones. Another strikeout. Meanwhile, Tessa texted updates filled with exclamation points about customer orders and a misbehaving broom she'd subdued with a lullaby. Evan smiled at the screen like an idiot. That evening, he parked outside Moonlight Remedies. She locked up and slid into the passenger seat, cheeks flushed. Any leads? Vale's a snore, he typed on his phone, then realized she sat beside him. He cleared his throat. No. But tonight we check your neighbor again. Maybe he hides evidence at the community garden. She perked. We could use a directional truth charm. Explain in English. I toss a pebble, it rolls toward the nearest lie. And nobody thinks that's odd? Only you'll notice. He sighed. Fine, but if a pebble incriminates an innocent pigeon, I'm writing it in the report. They arrived at the garden. Moonlight silvered damp leaves. Tessa whispered to a stone and set it on the path. It rolled, slowly, insistently, toward a shed. Evan's pulse quickened. They approached. The lock hung, broken. Inside, papers cluttered a potting bench. Evan flicked his flashlight. Threat letters identical to Tessa's lay among seed packets. His breath caught. That's my handwriting, she whispered, copied but mine. Evan bagged a sample. Gerald's cooking more than tomatoes. They heard a creak behind. Gerald loomed in the doorway, shovel in hand. Private property. Tessa stepped forward. Gerald, what are these? He sneered. Insurance. You witches think you're above us. She's never harmed you. You hexed my crops. That was mildew and overwatering. Gerald raised the shovel. Instinct propelled Evan. He yanked Tessa back, stepping in front. Put it down. Gerald's bravado wilted. He dropped the shovel and ran. Evan considered chase, but prioritized Tessa. She exhaled shakily. Thank you. He checked her arms. You okay? Yes. Their faces inches apart. Her breath smelled like cinnamon tea. Their lips drifted closer, then a sprinkler burst, dousing them. Tessa shrieked. Evan looked skyward, half laughing, half cursing fate. They stumbled out of the shed, soaked again. Back in the car, they peeled off wet jackets. Tessa giggled uncontrollably. Tell me the universe isn't playing games. Universe or witchcraft? He squeezed water from his hair. Let's process evidence. At his office, they compared the shed letters to her blackmail note under a magnifier. Same ragged edges but different ink strokes. Gerald was a forger, not the mastermind. Red herring, Evan muttered. Tessa's shoulders slumped. Then who? He flipped through her ledgers, paused on Daphne Lowell's name. A recent purchase. Rare auric ink. Expensive. Imported. What does auric ink do? Tessa frowned. Enhances spell longevity. I special order it. Daphne asked for some last month. For an art piece, she said. Could someone fabricate threats magically? Yes. Ink could mimic my handwriting perfectly, even delay delivery until triggered. Evan's pulse drummed. Gallery opening is tomorrow night. She looked up, eyes widening. We'll go together. He almost smiled. Undercover or as a couple? Color bloomed across her cheeks. Either way, I'm wearing heels. He closed the ledger. Then I'll polish my shoes. Lightning forked outside his window. The fern in the corner swayed, though no breeze entered. Tomorrow loomed like a test he didn't remember studying for. The next evening arrived faster than either of them expected. Evan found himself in front of his battered mirror, coaxing a tie knot into obedience for the first time in years. His thumbs fumbled with the silk, as if it were a foreign language. In the reflection, the office fern had produced 3 new blossoms overnight. Their quiet white faces regarded him like an amused audience. He shrugged on a charcoal blazer and stepped into the hallway where Tessa waited, cloaked in a storm blue dress that hugged her curves and spilled to her knees in a swirl of satin. The sight stalled his breathing. Her hair, normally a riot of curls, was half-pinned with silver herbs that glinted like moon shards. A pendant dangled at her throat, a glass vial no larger than a raindrop, swirling with gold dust. He managed one uncharacteristically husky syllable. Wow. She gave a self-conscious twirl that set the dress shimmering. Enchanted fabric. Stain-proof. Heel-proof. Unwanted touch-proof. Unwanted touch-proof? If anyone grabs me without consent, the cloth delivers a tiny static shock. Enough to sting, not scar. She lifted a brow. You, however, have a permanent exemption. His grin felt foolish and perfect. And ready? Almost. She produced a slim bronze pin shaped like a fox and fastened it to the lapel of his blazer. Heat surged beneath the metal, then faded. Luck charm, silent, subtle, should tilt odds our way. I thought you were my luck charm. Her smile softened. Flattery before danger, good tactic. Outside, evening air smelled of petrichor and paella drifting from a street vendor. They shared a cab, knees brushing as the driver navigated toward the Riverfront Arts District, where Daphne Lowell's latest exhibition promised immersive mixed-media wonders. City lights bled orange across slick pavement. Tessa traced droplets on the window. Do we have a plan beyond look pretty and improvise? I visited a printing shop this morning, he said. Picked up microfilm adhesive. If we catch Daphne handling any threatening notes tonight, I tag her fingers with invisible dye. Ultraviolet cameras at the gallery entrance will light her up like a carnival when she leaves. Tessa whistled softly. Low-tech meets high ambition. And I looped in Detective Marlowe. Uniforms are on standby 2 blocks away. He paused. I kept the witch angle out of the official memo. Thank you. Figured you should control that disclosure. She exhaled, shoulders easing. Control has been scarce lately. The cab rolled to the curb. Riverfront Gallery rose above them, a refurbished brick warehouse crowned with glass skylights. Gold floodlights washed the facade, while a velvet rope corralled guests dressed in designer eccentricity, sculptural hats, neon scarves, suits that sparkled like koi scales. A string quartet on the mezzanine played a jaunty waltz that chased through the open bay doors. Evan offered his arm. Tessa slipped her fingers into the crook of his elbow, warmth seeping through 2 layers of fabric. Inside, the space glowed with art and curated chaos. Sculptures of metal vines coiled around pillars. Paintings shimmered with hidden textures that shifted when viewers tilted their heads. Servers wove among patrons with trays of rosé and sea salt macaroons. Daphne Lowell appeared at once, a swan in crimson silk. Her honey blonde hair framed a smile as polished as her diamond earrings. She greeted Tessa with a kiss on both cheeks that seemed to skim the surface of affection without dipping in. "Tessa, darling, you made it, and you brought a friend." Her gaze flicked over Evan with appraisal that bordered on inventory. "Charming." "Evan Drake," he supplied, shaking her manicured hand. "Art enthusiast." "Perfect, we need more discerning eyes." Daphne looped her arm around Tessa's waist. "Come, I want you to see the centerpiece before the crowd grows unbearable." Tessa cast Evan a quick look of conspiracy, then allowed herself to be steered across the polished concrete. He followed at a discreet distance, pretending interest in a sculpture shaped like an exploded pocket watch. From his breast pocket he palmed the clear adhesive vial and waited. Daphne halted beneath a canopy of suspended canvases and spun dramatically. Behold, Metamorphosis of Memory. The installation consisted of diaries shredded into ribbons, each strand coated in shimmering ink and strung like a chaotic waterfall from the rafters. Hidden fans stirred the ribbons so they fluttered in perpetual sighs. Tessa stepped closer, brow furrowed. "What kind of ink did you use?" "Auric base," Daphne said lightly. "Absorbs ambient light, releases it as color. Isn't it delicious?" Tessa's fingers touched a ribbon. She flinched. Evan saw the momentary pulse of violet glow under her skin. Daphne watched, lips curling barely. Evan drifted nearer, intercepting a waiter and lifting a flute of sparkling water. When Daphne gestured to emphasize a point, her hand passed near his jacket. He guided a polite pivot, letting the back of her wrist brush the adhesive dot on his sleeve. Contact was fleeting, imperceptible, perfect. A violin trill soared above the quartet, signaling speeches soon. Guests migrated toward the small stage. Daphne excused herself to consult staff. Evan seized the gap. "Feel anything odd?" he murmured to Tessa. "She wove a siphon spell into the ink. It reacts to my aura." "Can you negate it?" "Not without unraveling the whole installation." Her shoulders squared. "Which might be exactly what I'll do. Let's get proof first." I tagged her with the die. He indicated a discreet side corridor. UV cameras are set up there, feeding a live tablet feed in the coat room. If her hands glow, we have physical tie-in to your blackmail letter. They slipped into the corridor, passing guests debating avant-garde minimalism. In the dim coat room, a small tablet propped on a shelf displayed entrance footage. Evan toggled to the UV filter. Silhouettes entering the gallery were edged in pale blue. Then Daphne re-entered the camera's field, beckoning a security guard. Her palms and finger pads blazed electric white. Tessa's breath hitched. "That's a signature if I ever saw one." Footsteps approached outside. Evan killed the feed and pocketed the tablet. They rejoined the throng just as Daphne ascended the stage. A spotlight bathed her in alabaster glow. "Friends, patrons, fellow dreamers," she began, voice dripping honey. "Thank you for celebrating creation with me." Applause blossomed. Tonight is about transformation, about the secrets we strip away to reveal beauty. Her gaze swept the audience, snagging on Tessa. And about truth. Evan felt Tessa tense like a drawn bow. He edged closer. "Ready." Daphne's smile widened. "I have a surprise demonstration. A living artwork." She raised a hand. Staff wheeled a pedestal draped in black cloth. "This piece integrates myth and reality. I call it Spellbound." Tessa whispered, "That's my travel grimoire under there." "How sure?" "I carved the clasp, one of a kind. Evan nodded once and signaled Detective Marlowe stationed near the bar. The officer straightened but held position. Daphne whipped away the cloth. Gasps rippled. On the pedestal lay the weathered grimoire, its silver clasp scored by claw-shaped etchings. Beside it sat a glass case containing bundles of envelopes identical to the blackmail note. "Some think magic is an illusion," Daphne declared. "I say it's art waiting to be curated. Tonight I offer proof that witchcraft exists." Murmurs erupted, phone cameras rose like a garden of Cyclops' eyes. Evan's pulse thundered. If Daphne revealed Tessa by name, the council would swoop. Damage control impossible. He threaded through spectators, mounted the stage steps, and spoke with amplified calm. "Miss Lowell, sorry to interrupt, but that item belongs to my client." He positioned himself between Daphne and the microphone. Daphne's eyes sparked. "Your client claims ownership of this artifact?" Tessa joined them on stage. "Yes, because it was stolen from me." The crowd inhaled collectively. Daphne laughed, brittle. "Oh, Tessa, darling. Still hiding behind retail shelves? Imagine what we could achieve by collaborating. Potions in limited edition. Spells signed like lithographs. You underprice your genius." "I don't monetize healing. Because you lack vision, I simply offered a nudge." Evan saw her hand flick, subtle as a snake strike. Ribbons from Metamorphosis of Memory fluttered wildly. Ink peeled from them in glimmering streams that coalesced above the pedestal, swirling into a smoky serpent. Gasps turned to shrieks as the serpent's eyes opened, bright as welding sparks. Tessa raised both palms. Audience, remain calm. She spoke a phrase like wind through reeds. The serpent hissed, wavered. Daphne snapped her fingers, feeding energy from the auric ink. The creature solidified, head lowering toward Tessa. Evan stepped forward, drawing a small flashlight. He thumbed it on. Ultraviolet beams slashed across Daphne's hands, illuminating the adhesive tracer and making her palms glow bright white. Whispers surged. "Security," he called, voice like a judge's gavel. "You're witnessing the source of those blackmail letters." He angled the light at the pedestal envelopes. Fluorescent flecks matched her fingerprints. Daphne's composure cracked. "You meddling mundane." She flicked her wrist. The serpent lunged for Evan. He dove, rolling across the stage as audience members scattered. The serpent smashed into a light rig, showering sparks. Tessa chanted, words quicksilver, weaving sigils in the air. Lavender smoke whirled around her. Evan scrambled to his feet, ripped the fox pin from his lapel, and hurled it like a dart. It struck Daphne's wrist with a snap of static. She yelped as the cloth of her sleeve crackled, the shock ward built into Tessa's dress, transferring through metal. Momentary distraction was enough. Tessa's final syllable cracked like thunder. The serpent imploded in a cyclone of confetti ink that rained harmlessly onto fleeing guests. Detective Marlowe rushed forward with 2 officers. Daphne tried to bolt, but Evan blocked her path. "Show's over," he said, voice calm but cold. Handcuffs clicked. Daphne's fury bent her features. "You think the council will let a witch slide just because they cuff me?" "They won't hear a word," Marlowe replied. "Tonight was an unlicensed pyrotechnic stunt. Charges: reckless endangerment, theft, extortion." She nodded at Evan, who produced the tablet with UV footage. Evidence transferred. Chain of custody established. Paramedics ushered any shaken guest to the lobby. Cleanup crews doused small fires. Gallery lights brightened, the quartet attempting a shaky reprise of their waltz. Tessa pressed a hand to her temple. Evan touched her elbow. "You all right?" She swayed. "Drained but intact. Let me seal the ink." She flicked a tiny gesture. The confetti dissolved, leaving faint gold motes that drifted upward like forgiven wishes. Marlowe returned. "We'll take Gerald in too." Daphne paid him for handwriting practice. He forged the letters. She cast spells on the envelopes. "Thank you," Tessa said. "File a statement tomorrow." Marlowe winked at Evan. "For now, get some rest. Maybe celebrate." They stepped into cool night. Rain had stopped. Clouds shredded to reveal a sliver of moon. Sirens faded as police cruisers pulled away with Daphne inside. Evan and Tessa strolled along the riverfront, heels clicking soft against cobblestones. Lamps cast amber halos on puddles. Silence between them felt gentle, like shared breath after laughter. Tessa halted at a wrought iron bench, slipping off her shoes with a sigh. Static-proof, not blister-proof. He shrugged out of his blazer, laid it across the bench for her to sit. She smiled, gratitude glowing. He lowered beside her. You were incredible. Ditto, nice throw with the foxpin. Do you practice lapel-based weaponry often? I may add it to my business card. They laughed, shoulders brushing. Her dress still smelled faintly of herbs and campfire sparks. He sobered. I'm sorry you had to fight your friend. She stopped being a friend when greed drowned empathy. Tessa twined a blade of hair around her finger. But I'm relieved it's over. He let his hand find hers, lacing fingers slowly so she could pull away if she wished. She didn't. She turned his palm upward and traced circles across the calloused skin. What now? He asked, voice nearly lost to river hush. Now I reclaim my grimoire, repair my wards, maybe schedule a vacation, and her cheeks flushed, and explore whatever this is. He leaned in, heart racing. Define this. Two people who saved each other, who make each other laugh, who might want to keep investigating life together. His thumb brushed her knuckles. Sounds like a closed case to me. She giggled. Nothing about us will ever be closed. He swallowed, nerves jangling despite battles won. Tessa Moon, may I kiss you? She answered by lifting onto her toes and capturing his lips in a kiss that tasted of rain and honey tea. The world condensed to warmth, river murmurs, distant music drifting from the gallery. Time stretched like taffy, then snapped back, leaving them breathless. Tessa leaned her forehead against his. One more thing. She removed the vial pendant and pressed it into his palm. Liquid luck, a single drop, once a lifetime. Use it when everything depends on hope. He closed her hand around it instead. I already used my one drop the day you walked into my office. Her eyes shimmered. Cheesy. True. They kissed again, slower, savoring. Dawn crept along the horizon, casting silver on rippling water. Eventually they rose, shoes in hand, and wandered toward her shop. The street was hush-quiet, city holding its breath between night and morning. At the stoop of Moonlight Remedies, they paused. Tessa unlocked the door but turned before stepping inside. Coffee? She asked him. Only if you brew it. I add cinnamon. I'll risk it. Inside, the shop smelled of safety and sunrise. They perched on stools behind the counter while the kettle whistled. Steam curled like friendly ghosts. Tessa poured, slid a mug his way. Evan sipped. Perfect. She lifted her own mug in toast. To secrets unveiled and new beginnings. He clinked gently. To witches and detectives. And to choosing one another. Outside, first light spilled over rooftops, painting the street in gold. In that quiet glow, a once shabby detective and a once secret witch shared smiles that felt like vows, unaware, or perhaps certain, that the universe had already written their epilogue among the stars.